Hey, very good. Okay, I'm gonna go on mute.
All right. So I call this the evolution of Livnot, lehibanot, veLashir. It's sort of the evolution of popular music of Israeli popular music, and how they offer portraits of the culture at that particular time. And that's what I've loved about Israeli music. It just gives you a snapshot of what's going on in the country at that particular moment. So I'll just give you first a disclaimer. These are my views, my perspective, and my taste. A lot is not covered. I'm definitely not, a scholar on the subject. It's just I've been very obsessed with the topic for best part of 30 years. So let's start with a sort of historical setting. The creation of a new Hebrew national culture, which was one of the aspirations of the Zionist movement, placed a strong emphasis on popular music, folk songs. They were considered integral to this old new culture, and they ran in parallel with the creation of Hebrew literature and poetry and other art forms, but music was much more accessible. So it was definitely from the moment sort of before the birth of the state already, it occupied pride of place in terms of cultural output. And it was a pillar of the identity that was being forged. With the birth of the state, this mission of creating this new culture, this Hebrew culture, received official sanction. Now there were funds to support it, and a whole bureaucratic machinery, and the state promoted a sort of Hebrewist musical culture, which emphasized biblical themes, rootedness in the land, agricultural settlement, and pastoral settings, which were all ideals that were deeply associated with the labor Zionist vision of Jewish renewal. Another layer that added to this by events, really, particularly with the Palmach in the 1930s and onwards, the ideal of courage, self-sacrifice for the homeland, and the memory of heroism and the fallen in the wars of independence, and then other Ma'arachot Israel, other campaigns and events, also occupy a prominent place in this emerging canon of Israeli music. And if you're familiar with Israeli culture, the songs that form this canon are used as the backdrop and the language for all manner of Kassim around the country. For Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom HaZikaron, it's part of the soundtrack of the country. So we will begin with a song that I'm sure most of you will know. It's considered the most famous and wholly representative of this canon. I remember one Israeli scholar once said that it's called Hareut, the friendship. And he says that there's something called Hareut index. So if you're identified with sort of the secular Israeli identity, this song makes your heart skip a beat. But if you're Haredi, perhaps it means nothing to you. If you're Russian, perhaps it means nothing to you. But this song was, a touchstone of Israeli identity and culture. Now we'll play it now with the English translation. Hopefully you'll hear it fine.
יורד ליל הסתיו ומצית כוכבים חרש חרש את הרוח עובר על הסף עננים מהלכים על הדרך כבר שנה לא הרגשנו כמעט איך עברו הזמנים בשדותינו כבר שנה ונותרנו מעט הרבים שאינם כבר בינינו אך נזכור את כולם את יפי הבלורית הזאת מעולם לא תיתן את ליבנו לשכוח אהבה מקודשת בדם את תשוב שובי בינינו לפרוח. הרעות נסנוך בלי מילים, אפורה עקשנית ושותקת, מלילות האימה הגדולים, את נותרת אדירה ודולקת. הרעות כי נערייך כולם נשוב בשמך, נחייך ונלך, כי רעים שנפלו על חרבם את חייך הותירו לזכר, ונזכור את כולם, את יפי הבלורית והכוח, כי רעות שכזאת לעולם לא תיתן את ליבנו לשכוח. אהבה מקודשת בדם, את תשובי בינינו לפרוח.
I remember one of the first experiences I had with this song, which I learned in Kibbutz Ulpan as a young Oleh Hadash. We sort of memorized it and sang it. And then I went several months later to Kikar Rabin for a memorial of his death in November. And we sang this song, which one of his, he was a palmachnik, so it was one of his favorite songs. And then some sort of far left activists interrupted, and they started singing like a version of this song with about closures in the West Bank, and they turned it around and they completely politicized it into their agenda. And I remember the fury people had, because this song is such like a testament to that generation. So it's maybe it's not as important as it is now, but you'll always hear it featured in Yemei HaZikaron Qasim. So this is sort of the setting for the 1940s and 50s, yet the ideological intensity, which we hear expressed in that song and in others, sort of consonant with this ideology, they had to make way for the development of this culture. I mean, it was now on the move, the arrival of different types of immigrants, perhaps the wish for more relaxed or less committed musical expression. They all begin to make their mark. There's a gradual departure from this austere sort of Hebraist mold towards something more akin to the Western world's definition of pop. Preference for individualist lyrics rather than collectivist ones, topics that were less weighty and serious. Now, I won't, there's two songs I want to share. We don't have time to go into the lyrics. They're sort of humorous songs from the 1950s, which I love these songs. Sort of the lighter side of things, because there's this, as I said, there's this official culture that wants to focus on the ideology, but there's a lighter side as you can expect, and it tries to assert itself. The first one is called Shir Falafel. It was a big hit in the 1950s. It's very amusing, and it's talking about how Israel has a new food. It's falafel. Everyone knows it. When a Jew arrives in Israel, they no longer share Birkat Gomel. They actually go and buy a falafel. It's become the central piece of Israeli identity. And I'll play you for a taste of it. I'll play you the song for a taste of it. One moment.
בכל מדינה כאן בעולם מאכל לאומי המוכר לכולם וכל ילד בגן יודע כי האוכל מקרוני הוא איטלקי לאוסטרים בווינה שניצל טעים והצרפתים אוכלים צפרדעים הסינים אוכלים אורז דקה ורזה הקניבלים אוכלים זה את זה ולנו יש פלאבל, פלאבל, פלאבל לאבא מתנה, גם אמא כאן קונה לסבתא הזקנה נקנה חצי מנה וגם החותנת היום תקבל פלאבל, פלאבל עם הרבה 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 פלפל פעם כשבא יהודי לישראל נשק לאדמה וברח הגומל היום הוא רק יורד מן המטוס וכבר קונה פלאפל ושותה גזוז אצלנו אין מלך יש רק נשיא אבל במלוכה כבר השגנו שיא אצלנו כל יום קם מלך חדש אחד מאושר השני מיואש כי לנו יש פלאבל, פלאבל, פלאבל כי כאן מוכרים לרוב מריח פה לרחוב ריחות של סומסומים ושמן פרפין וגם צרבת תוכל כאן לקבל מפלאבל, פלאבל עם הרבה 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 פלפל
It's a very amusing song, and the last stanza says that there's only one way that you'll eat falafel in a weird, rather unexpected taste. It's when it's prepared by Ashkenazim, and then it tastes like gefilte fish. It's a hilarious song. And the other song I wanted to play, we won't go into the lyrics, but it's a lovely song from the 1950s as well. Like I always think of it in the context of this country that has, you know, had the 1956 Suez War. The IDF is such a big part of the culture. And you think that in any country where the military plays such a vital role to the country's survival, that they wouldn't poke fun at this, but they do. And I think that's a lovely thing about Israel. It's always been, it's never been a militarist society, believe it or not. It's what people often get wrong. And this song was a big hit in the 1950s. And it takes a proud Jewish mother goes to see her son march, and everyone is marching in step, but her son is going the wrong way, and she says he's doing it right and everyone else is doing it wrong. And I'll just play you a bit of it, and I can translate more if you want, but it's just a lovely song, and it's sung with like a Yiddish accent as well for effect. Notice the military setting.
המצעד קריב מריע הרמקול, המצעד קריב הנה גם הקצין, כל החיילים דורכים ברגל שמאל, רק חיים כשלי דורך פה בימין, כי כל החיילים, כן כל החיילים, טועים ברגל בלי בושה, רק החיים כשלי, רק חיים כשלי, דורך ברגל הנכונה.
Said all the soldiers are marching on their right side, but Chaimke is marching on the left side. So everyone else is marching wrong. Only my son is marching on the right step. And it goes on, and Chaimke does worse and worse things. The parade goes really awry, but the mother always says that it's Chaimke who's doing it right and everyone else is doing it wrong. It's a lovely song, very nostalgic from that period. So now let's carry on with songs that I wanted you to look at. As I said, in the 1950s, you start to see the sort of slow, gradual departure from like this very Hebrewist mold. And the sort of two clashing tendencies emerge in Israeli popular culture. You have the collectivist, which dominates, but you have the more individualist that's arising. And funnily enough, there was one, I guess, medium that could combine the two, and that's the IDF's army entertainment bands. The IDF played a central role as the melting pot, making Israelis into Israelis, and they produced an enormous output of music, over 1,300 songs, and they launched the careers of almost all of Israel's most famous pop and rock singers of the time. Arik Einstein, Naomi Shemer, Kaveret, they all went through the army entertainment troops. Everyone who was everyone in Israel through the 1980s or 90s was part of it. And they had to combine the need for collective themes and Zionist ideas with just wanting to have a light popular culture as well. And they could do it very well. And it was very funny because sometimes there would be arguments about whether this song is an authentic expression of what the Jewish army should be singing about. And sometimes there were arguments about it, most notably later on with Shir LaShalom, the Song for Peace. So let's look at some of the more everyday songs rather than ideological, just for flavor. The first one we're going to look at is My Army Post, which praises the army post that every soldier has to sit on Shmirah on during their tours, their watches.
יש מי שגר בצריף רעוע, יש מי שוכן בתוך ערמון, שלישי יש לו שיכון קבוע, ולרביעי באדון דלפון. אך מה יש כאן להתווכח, היש שיכון דומה לזה. גם לא שילמנו דמי מפתח, ועוד ביקשו שלא נצא. יא משלתי בנשארי ללא קירות, יא מטבחים, יא מיטתי וכוכבים כבנורות. נכון שאין בו לוסוס רב, והחימום היחידי הוא חום הלב ואש הקרב, על משלתי, על משלתי.
Right, so that was My Army Post, which is a hymn to the army post, and it says the other one that's one of Naomi Shemer's earlier compositions is about sort of, again, a very sort of light song about falling in love in the rain, and I'll just play it quickly when I find it. Here we go.
שנינו יחד, תחת מטריה אחת, שנינו מדלגים על כל השלוליות. עיר בגשם סחה לנו ככה, החיים יפים, כדאי לכם לחיות. איזה מזל, החלטתי לגשת אל הצגת הקולנוע השנייה.
איזה מזל, התחיל לרדת גשם, איזה מזל שלא הייתה לך מטריה.
איזה מזל, הכרתי את פניך.
איזה מזל, חייכת אליי פתאום.
איזה מזל, הצעת לי ללכת יחד איתך. אמרת יש מקום, שנינו יחד, תחת מטריה אחת, שנינו מדלגים על כל השלוליות. עיר בגשם סחה לנו ככה, החיים יפים, כדאי לכם לחיות.
And then this song I will share, it was a big hit in the early 1960s, but it reflects the chauvinistic attitudes of the Israeli army at the time. So with that disclaimer, it's about 3 pkidim who are desperately in love with a girl called Dina Barzilai.
ארבע, 9, 6, 3, 5, 1. דינה ברזילי, צבע עיניים כחול, צבע שיער ארמוני, הגובה 160 סנטימטר, משקל 58 קילוגרם. דינה ברזילי, 4, 9, 6, 3, 5, 1. סגן גד רפאלי הלך לאכול צהריים, ואנחנו שלושתנו נשארנו לבד במשרד. ארונות של ברזל ערימות של תיקים, וסביבנו אלפי ילקוטי השירות. כן, אנחנו היטב מכירים את כולם, לפי התפסים בילקוט השירות. מכירים את כולם, מכירים את כולם, אך מכל ילקוטי השירות שהכרנו אחד ליבנו נגע. דינה ברזילי 496351, צבע עיניים כחול, צבע שיער הרמוני, הגובה 160 סנטימטר, משקל 58 קילוגרם. דינה ברזילי 496351.
Okay, again, disclaimer about the chauvinistic attitudes. It was a big hit, and you can hear Yehoram Gaon there singing in the Lahakat Tanachal. Right. So they sang about the light side of life, but they also sang about war. And it's very appropriate that we listen to these two songs ahead of Yom HaZikaron. Just bear with me while I get the playlist ready. The first one we're going to listen is about Ammunition Hill, Givat Achmosh. It was it's like an enormous hit in the wake of the 1967 war. So much so that it occupied the top of the hit parade for several weeks. And then the people at Galei Tzahal in the radio station didn't know, they felt that it was a dishonor to the soldiers because it was going to drop from number one. And they felt that if it dropped, it would say something about the country forgetting about those who died. So here we go. The translation at the end is there. It's essentially a narrative of the battle. I'll just play you the beginning and then we can read the text.
היה אז בוקר היום השני למלחמה בירושלים. האופק החביר במזרח. היינו בעיצומו של הקרב על גבעת התחמושת. לחמנו שם מזה 3 שעות. התנהל קרב עקשני, קטלני. הירדנים נלחמו בעקשנות. זה היה יעד מבוצר בצורה בלתי רגילה. בשלב מסוים של הלחימה נשארו לידי 4 חיילים בלבד. עלינו לשם בכוח של 2 פלוגות. לא ידעתי היכן האחרים כיוון שהקשר עם דודיק המ"פ ניתק עוד בתחילת הקרב. באותו רגע חשבתי שכולם נהרגו.
2:30 נכנסנו דרך הטרשים לשדה האש והמוקשים של גבעת התחמושת, מול בונקרים מבוצרים ומרגמות 120 וכמה בחורים על גבעת התחמושת.
So the song goes on and narrates the progress as the soldiers go onto Ammunition Hill fighting the Jordanian Legion, and it ends, as you see in this last sections, as they make the hill, and of all the ones who went of the Pluga, we 7 returned to the city. Smoke rose from the hill. The sun is high in the east on Ammunition Hill, on fortified bunkers, and our brothers, the men who stayed there forever, 20 years old, on Ammunition Hill. So that's one of those songs that Lahakat Tanachal knew how to do best in terms of memorial of the fallen. And this is another of Shemer's jewels. We came from the same village, and this we'll listen to in its entirety.
אנחנו שנינו מאותו הכפר, אותה קומה, אותה בלורית שיער, אותו חיתוך, דיבור, מה יש לומר? הן, אנחנו מאותו הכפר, אנחנו שנינו מאותו הכפר, שדה ירוק, חצינו עד צבא, בערב שבנו יחד לכיכר, כי אנחנו מאותו הכפר. ובלילות שישי שרוח חרישי וצמרות שחורות עובר, אז אני אותך זוכר. תמיד בפרדסים ובשדרות אהבנו את אותן הנערות, אבל תמיד אמרנו אין דבר, זה הכל נשאר בתוך הכפר. ברחנו אל אותם המקומות, לחמנו בשלוש המלחמות, זחלנו על חוצים ועל דרדר, אבל שבנו יחד אל הכפר. ובלילות שישי שרוח חרישי בצמרות שחורות עובר, אז אני אותך זוכר. אני זוכר בקרב שלא נגמר, פתאום ראיתי איך אתה נשבר, וכשעלה השחר מן ההר, אז אותך הבאתי אל הכפר. אתה רואה, אנחנו כאן בכפר, כמעט הכל נשאר אותו דבר. בתוך שדה ירוק אני עובר, ואתה מעבר לגדר. ובלילות שישי שרוח חרישי בצמרות שחורות עובר, אז אני אותך זוכר.
So yeah, again, one of Naomi Sherman's finest compositions. So two other big hits at the time of Kotanachal, very well known, and again they make the rounds during Yom HaZikaron, is What Shall I Bless? Ma'avarech. We'll hear part of it.
מעברך
that I disconnected for some reason. Can you hear me? Okay. Let's try again. We don't share screen. So we don't have to listen to the song again, but you get the idea about an angel asking how they will bless a boy and all the different gifts that they give them. And in the end, the kicker is, of course, that God forgot to give him the gift of life because the child's now an angel. And to end on a more hopeful note of the different hits that the Lach produced, this is a more sort of optimistic vision of how peace would break out. Again, a very famous song of the band. It's called Flowers in the Gun Barrel. Now that should work.
כשאביב ירדה יאור בחיבה בשדות הראשיתה אז ילדה הקטנה ויעשתי לעיר הלבנה תצא אז בשירי ולחייל תשים סביון לבדה והשעה תרקדי
The music keeps breaking up, Gabi.
Sorry, I need, Mike, you told me I need to reselect thematic setting. You're on mute.
Sorry, share screen and then go on to share sound on the first.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
On the bottom left. You have to stop sharing and come out again.
Yeah. So stop share. Sorry about that. It all got disconnected when I lost my internet connection. So share sound. Did you manage to hear any of that? No, yes? Should I play it again or not?
It kept breaking up, so you couldn't really hear much.
All right, I'll play the beginning again. Hopefully it'll work.
כשאביב נרדם יאור בחיוורון בשדות האש איתם הקרב האחרון ובוקר נהדר מן הביטה על ההר אז יעלה בזמר ורון השמש תדלק ונעשה לרפיח ירח ילבין על פסגות החרמון פרחים בקנה ובנות בצריח ישובו לעיר חיילים בהמון ילדה אחת קטנה ובידה זרים לעיר הלבנה תצא אז בשירים ולחייל נרגש בשמחה ויונה בדש, והשמיים כבהירים. השמש תדלוק ונסע לרפיח, ירח ילבין על פסגת החרמון. פרחים בקנה ובנות בצריח, ישובו לעיר חיילים בהמון.
Okay, so that sort of these songs and Shir Shalom, which I won't go into. I presume all of you know a song for peace because it was talked about endlessly at the time of Rabin's assassination. It was the last song he sang. It's well known. All these songs are the heyday of the army entertainment bands. That's when they're at their peak of their fame. After 1967, they were like the superstars of Israeli pop culture. And something comes and changes their place. And that, of course, is the Yom Kippur War. They don't recover the army entertainment bands. They don't occupy the place that they did. As I said, these songs sort of represent their peace, these peace-yearning songs. What Shall I Bless, Flowers in the Gun Barrel, The Song for Peace, are their biggest hit, one of their biggest hits of the late 60s. But the 1973 war displaces them from their perch in the same way that the army generals have been superstars and idolized. The generals started being criticized widely, and the army troops began to fade in importance, becoming criticized as kitsch or cliched and just not representing the way things should be in a country. Why do we have these? Why is the army producing a popular culture? So what happens in the 1970s, the Yom Kippur War breaks that mold that I think operated between 1948 and 1973 of the army being at the center of popular culture, and more individual voices begin to come to the fore. And they coincide with the rise of the singer-songwriter trend in the United States. A certain melancholy and sadness seeps through. Songs are much more personal. They're less ideological. And there's also a boom in adaptations of poems into music. That begins in the 1970s. Really, it's its peak and goes through the 1990s. And also, for the first time in the life of the state, songwriters start to reckon with the memory of the Shoah. It's not something that's ever been touched. And of course, music by Mizrahi artists who had existed on the fringes in many ways, it begins its slow but inexorable rise towards eventual dominance. I mean, by the 21st century, Mizrahi music is the mainstream, and sort of secular Israeli, the old mold, has become much more of a marginal pursuit. So we'll look at some of these more personal choices. A selection of songs from the 1970s through the 1990s. I'm not going to be. I'll give you some songs from recent times, but this is more sort of backward looking in a way. And the first song we'll listen to is in honor of Yehonatan Geffen, who passed away last week. He was a poet, a writer, and Aviv Geffen's father, a big pop star of the 1990s. And he was also part of the Dayan dynasty. He was the great nephew of Moshe Dayan, Yehonatan, or nephew to Moshe Dayan. He passed away suddenly, so Israel was quite bereaved by his passing. So let's listen to a song that came out ironically in 1973, composed by Geffen and sung by Arik Einstein in his Eretz Yisrael Hayeshana Ve'atova album that came out in 1973.
אומרים שהיה פה שמח לפני שנולדתי, והכל היה פשוט נפלא עד שהגעתי. שומר עברי על סוס לבן בלילה שחור. בשפת הכנרת טרומפלדור היה גיבור. תל אביב הקטנה, חולות אדומים, ביאליק אחד. שני עצי שקמים, אנשים יפים, מלאים חלומות. אנו באנו ארצה לבנות ולהיבנות. כי לנו, לנו, לנו ארץ זו. כאן איפה שאתה רואה את הדשא, היו פעם רק יתושים וביצות. אמרו שפעם היה כאן חלום נהדר, אבל כשבאתי לראות לא מצאתי שום דבר. יכול להיות שזה נגמר, יכול להיות שזה נגמר. שהיה פה שמח לפני שנולדתי, והכל היה פשוט נפלא עד שהגעתי. פלמח פינג'אן קפה שחור וכוכבים, אנגלים מחתרת וילקוט הכזבים, שפה מוגדורים, כפייה על צבא, ירון זהבי, אלתרמן תמר, בחורות יפות, מכנסיים קצרים, היה להם בשביל מה לקום בבוקר. כי לנו, לנו, לנו ארץ זו.
I think it's interesting that that song came in 1973 when the country was about to experience the crisis of confidence. And Yehonatan Geffen himself was going to go and have a terrible, I mean, he had a terrible experience. Post-traumatic disorder essentially ruined his life. He became addicted to drugs and alcohol, etc. But so he wrote this song before, sort of this, I don't know if it's a souring with the Israeli Zionist vision or a sense that the second generation can never measure up to the founders. The other song I wanted to show you, I don't know if I'll see where we are with time, because I definitely want to show you the last two, is by Meir Banai. He was, the Banais were this old Jerusalem family of Parsi descent, and they all have had an enormous role in Israeli popular culture. Yossi Banai, Meir Banai, Ehud Banai, they're all singers, and Orna Banai is a comedian. And then it's gone to the next generation as well. So it's two generations now, no, 3 generations of singers and artists, and they're all from the same family. And 3 of them have turned to religion. So you get religion explored in their songs. This one, it's about his visit to Jerusalem and seeking and walking around the old city. It's a beautiful song. Do you want me to play it even if we go a bit over time, over 8:30, or you want me to skip to the last 2? Yeah, okay. Meir sadly died of cancer about 5 years ago, but he was extremely gifted. And
מסתובב בעיר הישנה ורעש בה מכל פינה. אני מכיר כבר את דרכי, הדרך אל שער הרחמים. לא מביט סביב, לא מקשיב, איש חולם אני, וכך היה תמיד. אבל מכיר כבר את דרכי, הדרך אל שער הרחמים. חי פעם, רק פעם, יש טעם, אין טעם, עם כוח, בלי כוח, שער הרחמים. בואי איתי יחד, בואי מתוך הפחד, כי את גם את חלק משער הרחמים. השלטים מעל החנויות משקיפים על הרחובות, בתוך ליבי יש צעקה והיא גדולה, הראו לי את שער הרחמים. חי פעם רק.
So that's Gates of Mercy. He has many other wonderful songs. But as I said, the Banais, two of them, three, became Balei Tshuva. And the other one is Ehud, his cousin. And for the Torah chat group, this is perhaps the best treatment of the David and Shaul relationship I've ever seen. They present them as sort of two mates who call each other up.
שעת לילה מאוחרת, כולם מזמן הלכו לישון, רק שאולר קודר מרים לדוד טלפון. אולי תקפוץ אליי יא דוד, נפשי אגם שחור. תביא איתך את הגיטרה, כי באצבעותיך אור. דוד בא מיד רגוע, מתיישב ומכוון, את המלאכה היטב יודע, עוצם עיניים, מנגן. 10 אצבעות לדוד, קצה כל אצבע קרן אור. כשהוא פורט על המיתר, הזמן זורם לו לאחור. בתוך ביטנו, אוהב שונא ומקנא, מכור לחברו. כבר מאפל נופל, השד חוזר להשתולל, סכין נזרקת באוויר, פתאום יש בין השניים קיר. וסולח כששאול מתקשר. בוא שוב לנגן לי דוד, קח אותי לכוכבים. בוא שוב לנגן הלילה שיר
So that was Ehud Banai with his portrayal of the David and Saul, King David and King Saul's relationship, tortured relationship. And then Ashes and Dust by Yehuda Poliker was late 80s album, and it was the first album to deal with the memory of the Shoah by two children of Holocaust survivors. Poliker's parents survived the Holocaust they were from Salonika, and they went to Auschwitz and they survived. And then Yaakov Gilad, the composer, his parents met in a displaced persons camp after surviving the camps. And they wanted to bring, they'd been active in pop music for a long time. They'd been doing rock music, singing about, what you do with rock songs. And they wanted to dedicate this song to the theme of the Holocaust. And this is a song that Yaakov Gilad wrote to his mother, Harina Birnbaum. She was the sort of survivors' rights activist, Holocaust survivors' rights activist, collecting memories. She was dedicated her life to this, and she was going on a trip to Poland. And I think this is, again, a very touching song about a son worried about his mother going back to the place of death.
יום אביב ריחות לילך בין חורבות העיר שלך, יום יפה לדור בנהר, בתוכי הלב נשבר. שם הייתה בינה ילדותך, אישה קטנה, אנשים שאיש לא מכיר, אין אפילו בית שיזכיר. ואם את נוסעת, לאן את נוסעת? הנצח הוא רק אפר ועבר. לאן את נוסעת? לאן את נוסעת? שנים וכלום עוד לא נמחק. יהיה לך קר, כסף כיס, גביש סוכר. אם יהיו קשים הימים, תזכרי בי לפעמים. ואם זה עוד מסע נואש, אל הצריף, אל המגרש, במסילת העיר הישנה, איש לא יחכה בתחנה. ואם את נוסעת, לאן את נוסעת? הנצח הוא רק אפר ועבר. לאן את נוסעת? לאן את נוסעת? שנים וכלום עוד לא נמחק. מי ימתיק לילותייך? מי יקשיב לבכייך? מי ישמור צעדייך בדרכך? לאן את נוסעת? לאן את נוסעת? הנצח הוא רק אפר ועבר. לאן את נוסעת? לאן את נוסעת? שנים וכלום עוד לא נמחק. קחי יהיה לך קר.
I found this song very moving. Just the thought of the son worried about his mother going back to Poland is just really rips the heart. Right, so now to the present day. Well, we all know that Israel is a complex society, one of many tribes, and they all have their songs today. Hebrew rap, punk music in English, nigunim and piyutim for the Haredim, Mizrahi pop. The diversity is dizzying and remarkable for such a small country. From this impossibly varied reality, it is very hard to pick just a few songs to paint a portrait of Israel today. But in a way, in this diversity, one can say that songs no longer represent or unify anything. Each subculture has its own language, symbols, and themes. And sometimes music brings them together, but perhaps less than it used to. This is my last selection, a song that I think, especially after all that's happened in Israel, you really wish people would listen to it. It's about not pigeonholing people. It's by an artist called Hanan Ben-Ari. He's religious, but he lives in a secular world, and he tries to bridge these two things. But again, I always... Here we go. The song's called Wikipedia, and you'll see the message. It's a lovely message.
לזרום עם המוח בהתניות אוטומטיות שלא דורשות לטרוח, רק לתייג ולנבוח, להסיט ולסבוח, לאלילי הרייטינג אייטמים בכל הכוח. הכל כבר מסודר לנו בראש, מגירות, לא ניתן למציאות להפריע לנו לראות שכל שמאלני הוא בוגד, כל ערבי מחבל מתאבד, כל חרדי הוא שודד וכל המתנחלים רצחו את רבין. כל תל אביב טבעונית, כל נתיבות מסורתית עממית, כל הדתיים פרימיטיביים עם ציצית, ועל הדרך מחקו את דרווין. אל תכלאוני בשום כלום, אל תסכמו אותי בוויקיפדיה. אני הכל, אני לא כלום, אור אין סוף לבוש בגוף, אז אל תכלאוני בשום כלום. תקראו לי דון קישוט שמעז לקרוא תיגר, שימו לי פרס על הראש וגיליוטינה בכיכר, השדים זמנם עבר והמלך הוא עירום, תמחקו את כל מה שידעתם עליי עד היום. לא אני המתנחל, לא נציג של אלוהים, לא דוס שמדיר נשים, לא גשר בין המגזרים, יישרפו המגזרים, תשרפו דעות קדומות, לכל אחד יהיה סיכוי לכתוב את הסיפור שלו, כי אם הכל גלוי וידוע מראש, קלישאות, לא ניתן למציאות להפריע לנו לראות כל מזרחי מקופח, כל חילוני הוא כופר מלוכלך, כל אנשים למטבח וכל הרוסים על סטלין. קלו כבר כל הקיצים, כל חבר כנסת קופה של שרצים, כל האתיופים רצים ואלו שלא שרים עם רייכל. אז אל תכלאוני בשום כלום. עוד יבוא יום יבוא ולא תכלאוני בשום כלום. לא תסכמו אותי בוויקיפדיה. אני הכל, אני לא כלום, ברום באתי ושוב. אז אל תכלאוני בשום כלום.
And I think that's all we have time for. I know I've been showing you a lot of songs. I'll stop sharing now, and if anyone has any comments or questions or anything you wanted me to discuss before we close, I'll stop sharing.
I'd be interested in seeing a list of all the songs you considered and discarded.
Sure.
If you have such a thing, if you would send it around, that would be great, because that would give us.
Do you have Spotify?
I do, and I don't really use it yet, but I will.
Okay. I'll send you my playlist.
Okay, great.
Anything? Yes? You're on mute.
You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Can't hear you.
Mute.
Can you unmute yourself?
There he goes.
Marvelous. Fantastic selection, Gabi. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I mean, it was very hard to summarize 75 years.
Not all of your own 75 years, no.
But I wanted to go by that theme that you see playing out in Israeli society between the collectivist beginning and towards sort of multicultural cacophonous reality. It just sort of happened over the years, and now it's there. And as I say, there's arguments about what represents Israelis today, especially after the weeks that the few weeks that we've had. But that's why I end with this song, that I hope people can go beyond the pigeonholing and see each other as fellow Israelis and fellow Jews. And
the one just before, I mean, this fantastic song, this one, the last one, Wikipedia, but the one just fantastic, but the one just before was so, I think it was the one so resonant now under the present circumstances. I don't know, maybe getting mixed up with the ones. No, that was, anyway, it doesn't matter. I wanted to ask you one question, and I don't want to hog the time. It seems to me, and certainly felt to me, that in the half, at least the latter half that you were showing us, the music is significantly less important than the words. That the words absolutely dominate. They are magnificent words. They're very elliptical sometimes, but very powerful. And sometimes it's almost incantatory. There's very little melody. Obviously, it's also the world has gone that way, because the style in the early days had a lot of melody, beautiful melody, songs we showed. I first became aware that there was this change. I knew very little of the songs except what filtered through to me. And I only became aware of this change in attitude with Eretz, Eretz, Eretz. And I remember my friend Irit saying to us, there's a sadness in it that came about around that time. I think this survey has been fantastically helpful and informative.
Just to comment on that, I think the Yom Kippur War really brought forward this sort of the singer-songwriter tradition. Words became incredibly important. I mean, they always were, but you had that revolution in the personal, and you had the poet evenings come to the fore, and they would have these meshoerim, and they would win prizes based on the best adaptation of poets. And once you take poetry and you put it into music, you're putting the words at the front. And that tradition has stayed. And I shared with some of you in this think Meira and maybe Mike, there was a beautiful song that came out maybe 6 months ago about the story of the 12 spies. And it's just a wonderful like weaving of the story of the 12 spies from the Torah with Israel's current situation and the feeling that, we're trying to get into the land, but we're never going to actually make it to the land. It's just gorgeous. And again, it's just that sort of, the words are really make it for me. I mean, especially because if you love the Hebrew language, just listening to what they do with it, it's just amazing.
Could you send us that one, Gabi, or the name of it?
Sure, I'll forward it. I'll forward the translation I sent, I think, to Meira and Mike, and those are the people I sent it on this call. Yeah, sure. Anyone else want to ask about any particular song? I mean, there's a lot of people who are missing here. I didn't mention Arik Einstein really. He sang, but I mean, he was a giant, and he straddled, being a crooner in the 1950s, and he became a hippie in the 1960s, and suddenly when he became middle-aged, he became all nostalgic. He started producing songs of the land of Israel. So it's you see the full shift in him that happened in that period between 1967 and 1980. And we don't have Yafa Yarkoni, the songstress of the wars, and Shoshana Tamari, and there's a lot of people missing. But I went with themes rather than, because you can't cover everyone.
The one Sha'ar, well, Harachmonis, I can't think of the right word. Yeah. Is I would like if you would be prepared to give a bit of a commentary or an explanation, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, yeah, sure. With him, the Banais underwent very public returns to religion, and I think he was an atheist, and that song marks the beginning of his searching. I mean, he's going to Jerusalem looking for mercy, and also. Again, one of the trends that started in Israeli popular culture in 1973 is phenomenon of famous artists becoming Haredi, going back to Shuba. And there's something about, you need security amidst all the insecurity, right? I mean, Uri Zohar, Arik Einstein's best friend, he was like Mr. Entertainment, and he abandoned everything after 1973, right? He became religious. And there's a moving song by Arik Einstein about missing his best friend because their worlds are completely separated. Right. And this is Meir's beginning. He becomes religious, and I think this marks the beginning of his search for religion.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Any other questions you had about any particular songs?
I want to say it was fantastic. Thank you very much, Gabi. It's very enjoyable.
Yes, thank you. It was wonderful.
And a different aspect. I can't say I'm exactly wanting to celebrate you, and that's what this year's been a bit gloomy about things, but that's
there's always
a different aspect.
There's always reason to celebrate, Tanya.
Yes, that's
always true. Reason. And that's why I ended on a hopeful note, because that song, there's a lot of people who want to find common ground, and a lot of people who want to make things work. And let's not get despondent.
Well, what I'd like to say is that it's been recording all along, and I hope that this time this recording is going to be available, because I'd love to hear the whole thing again.
We have, John, we're having a problem at the moment putting things on our website, recordings on our website, but Mike and James are working on a solution. Everything will be available.
Yeah, tov.
And again, if you're interested, send me an email and I will share my, I don't think I have your email, Shelley, but if you send it to me, I can respond with the playlist of the songs that I had considered.
Our joint email.
That's the one to prize.
And I'll send you the playlist.
Thank you. That's lovely. And thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. And they've started, for anybody who's interested, I'm not, there's a new Hebrew singing club at JW3 on Monday evenings. It's in Hebrew, but very simple Hebrew, and they're doing beautiful songs, although most of what you played, I haven't heard before. But they also, similar sort of picking out songs that are known by every Israeli from childhood.
Lovely. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining.
Yeah,
Thank you, Gabi.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.